For our piece, our chosen genre was psychological thriller. To make it fit the codes and conventions of the genre, we researched many psychological thriller films, such as Seven and 12 Monkeys. We found that they all have certain features in common, such as being surrounded in mystery, and having a battle of minds between the protagonist and the antagonist. Another convention used within psychological thrillers is that the audience never fully understands what's going on until the very end of the plot. Because of this, the shots don't necessarily flow from one to the next. They seem to be random to people who are unaware of the storyline. Another characteristic of the genre is that they are aesthetically peculiar and strange. To recreate this in our film, we used several editing effects, such as a red colour tint, which signifies blood and anger. We also had some film-esque crackling and distorted font, both in the titles. We've also used some fitting music which adds to the cold, uncomfortable mood of the piece. Our film contradicts codes and conventions of the genre, as we used no diegetic sound at all in the opening. We thought that any extra sound would take away from the impact of the footage and the music, as they go so well together. Two characters in our piece, and it isn't clear to the audience who they are. We are first introduced to a character who seems to be irregular compared to an average person. This type of character is typical of a psychological thriller. He doesn't really represent any social group as such, as he doesn't give away much about himself, except that he clearly isn't sane. The shots that involve this character are dark and gloomy, portraying him to be a mysterious, lonely sort of person. The other character is easier to read. He seems to be middle, maybe upper class, due to his costume being a smart tuxedo. He is seen combing his hair in a neat style, showing he cares about his appearance. Unlike the other character, his face is seen clearly within the shot, and his surroundings seem to be normal. The audience can instantly relate more to this character, as he seems a lot more socially normal than the other man. I wouldn't say that our film is mainstream, as our target audience are those who are more interested in the genre specifically than just anything at all. Because of that, I would say that companies like Film 4 or Picture House would distribute our film, as they're distributors who target more niche audiences compared to companies such as Universal and Paramount. Our target audience are people aged between 15 to 30 years old, as younger viewers may not be able to follow the plot, and some scenes may not be suitable. Older viewers may find that the plot doesn't appeal to them as such, but saying that, they could easily enjoy it. From research we did of other films of the same genre, we found that the majority of our audience would be between 15 and 18, as they have watched these types of film far more than any other age group. Right from the start of our title sequence, we had music and an analog crackle to draw in the audience. The first shot is one of the character's eyes close up. This is a bold shot, which definitely catches the eye. Because we decided against any diegetic sound, the silent film makes the watcher focus on what's happening, as they can't rely on any other sense. Throughout the piece, we used varied editing techniques instead of cut after cut. We feel this makes it more interesting, and thus makes the audience focus on what's happening. We also used many different video effects, such as saturation, desaturation, colour tinting, and other various colour effects. These also help our opening sequence engage the watchers and make them carry on watching. Before we started this project, I knew little about editing software. Whilst in the editing process, we had to combat a few problems, such as colour tinting, creating the titles, and syncing the footage in time with the music. Another technique we used was to add film grain and cliched movie reel style lines to add more intrigue to our piece. When sorting out the order of the clips, as well as using standard cuts, we also dissolved between shots and overlaid them to make our opening stand out. Another thing that I've learnt is that you don't need an expensive camera to take great looking footage. We used a standard camcorder, yet the end result is much more impressive than I would have ever imagined. Now, having finished this project, I realise how much I've learnt about camera angles, different types of shot, and how every little detail affects the overall outcome of the piece. For example, using different camera angles instead of the same ones over and over engages the audience and stops them from becoming bored and uninterested. I've learnt that mise-en-scène is also important, as if it is used properly, the audience can become fully immersed into the world of the film, instead of noticing flaws in the props, the costumes, or the location. I've also realised that using editing to its full potential can make a perfectly acceptable film into an incredibly engaging piece.